Good evening. You're watching the Market Report with me, David Williams. Normally we have a market report on a Friday which looks at the day but also the week. And over the 30 minutes we look at the big stories and personalities of the week. Well, this time we're looking at one particular personality and story of the week, and that's Eskom and municipalities. And we have the acting chief executive in the studio. So we're not going to waste that opportunity. But I also have with me this evening Ashraf Mohamed, who is CIO. Ashraf Garda is a cricket commentator, I think. Ashraf Mohamed, CIO of BUSHA Investment Group, and I have Viv Govender, who is Senior Analyst at Lehumo Capital. Ashraf and Viv, welcome to you. And we're joining the conversation with the Acting CEO of Eskom, Matshela Koko. And of course, the biggest story of the week is the costs of cutting electricity when municipalities don't pay. Good evening to you. And you've got a lot of fuss in the media this week about, in particular, the Lehumo municipality, where in the Standerton area, Ashraf Foods has one of their biggest operations, and it's not your fault and it's not Ashraf Foods' fault, it's the Lehumo municipality's fault. You're cutting off the electricity. Is this the only way?
We have a very embarrassing situation. We have a very embarrassing situation that we've allowed our municipal debt to increase tenfold in 5 years' time. That in the last 8 months, they've increased by 4 billion rands. We're going into the capital market, we're raising debt, and our funders are asking us a very difficult question. Why should we trust you with our money when you can't collect money from your own government institutions? It's very embarrassing. It's extremely embarrassing. You can't, and we find ourselves in a situation where we can't borrow money to generate electricity and give it to municipalities who do not pay. Everybody knows that the worst thing you can do is to borrow money to pay salaries.
Yeah. Let's just pause there, and before Ashraf and Viv come in, what is the scale of the problem? In other words, how much are you owed by government institutions, municipalities at the moment?
We owed 10.2 billion rands by the beginning of this month. We project that by the end of this financial year, 31st March, it will get to 12 billion rands. We've already impaired 1.2 billion rands by the first half of this year, and we project to impair another 1.2 billion rands. It's a road to nowhere.
Yeah.
My question is, a business like Astral that operates within that municipality certainly has been paying its electricity bills. What are the chances of them purchasing directly from Eskom and bypassing the municipality?
The chances are very good. And let me tell you the conversations we're having with government and provincial government. We're having very progressive discussions with them. I just think we left it too late, because provincial government, and I've met the Premier yesterday of Northwest, I've met the Director General of Orange Free State, and they're saying to us, we've got problems in 3 areas. We've got a problem in the billing system, credit management, and financial controls. That's the point. And they are saying to us, let us agree with Eskom to take over the electricity provisions of these municipalities and convert the postpaid meters into prepaid meters. What that does, it solves the future problem. Remember, even our current accounts are not being serviced. So that will solve the future problem, but it does not solve the area debt. And what provincial government, part of the proposal is that the area debt is taken over by the provincial government. We're having these progressive discussions. Unfortunately, I think it's a bit too late. And my expectation is that we will continue to interrupt power from Monday, but we must quickly bank the proposals that are on the table and make them a court order and assume that we are a decent people, decent communities, that we will not act in contempt of court.
Just a question. I mean, why do we have this municipal separation? Why do we have certain municipalities basically providing power when Eskom could? Why do you have that middleman in the place? And secondly, if you did have to actually go and overtake your municipality, what's the prospects, for instance, taking over the municipality's infrastructure, basically in lieu of the debt that they owe you?
Look, we've got legacy issues. Municipalities have got licenses to provide electricity to the ratepayers. That's a legacy issue. What is happening now, as part of the solutions to the problem that we find ourselves, is to look at a different dispensation where Eskom directly has a contract with the ratepayer one-on-one. That's where we're going to. What we're saying is a legacy issue, and we should look forward.
We also know historically that municipalities have used electricity to make money for other things, not simply to pay for
Well,
the electricity.
let me tell you a very painful story we talked about yesterday. It's a municipality in the northwest that is 70 to 80% on prepayment, which means that the ratepayers are paying. The ratepayers are paying.
In other words, they're paying in advance.
They are paying in advance, like the business that you just mentioned in Mpumalanga. But the municipalities are not paying us.
In fact, they're stealing the money.
I would not say they're stealing the money, but I would say, I would go with what the municipalities have, the premiers have said, that Eskom, let's work together, give us the best people to come in, sort out the infrastructure, sort out the bidding process, sort out the credit management process, and assist us with the financial management as a transition to Eskom taking over the supply of electricity to the customers.
It sounds like a sensible solution. We can talk a little bit later about whether it will come in time to help Astral. Now, they happen to be the biggest employer in the Standerton area, the Lehumo municipality. They have a massive operation there. If Eskom goes ahead with its decision to switch off the lights, it could have disastrous consequences for that operation. So we spoke to Astral CEO Chris Skitter about what the exact effect will be here.
Lehumo is the old Greater Standerton area, and that is where we have some of our biggest operations. We've got a fully integrated business there, and we've been investing in that area because of guarantees of electricity both by Eskom and by Lehumo municipality, and now we have to put up with this. Eskom has issued a document last night that they will cut. It's no longer a threat. They will cut on the 23rd. We just received notice via their legal team again. They will proceed. So what it means is that we will have birds and sheds that will suffocate because there's no electricity to handle the ventilation. We won't be able to produce feed to feed the birds, and those birds that are still alive, we won't be able to process them effectively. So it will have a negative impact on the complete business, but also on the community. And this is a typical case of a collapsed government structure. We've invested there. We also attracted foreign investors to invest there on the back of our business, and now we're going to be stuck without electricity. So a collapse of a infrastructure or a municipality.
Paint a picture for us regarding the investment that you make in Lehumo from a jobs perspective, how much you pay for your electricity bill every month.
In that area, we've got a fully integrated business in order to process in the order of 2 million birds per week. In order to do that on the farms, the feed mill, and in the processing plant, we employ about 4,100 people. We are the biggest employer in that area, and our electricity bill is in the order of 6.1 million rand a month that we pay over very disciplined, like on the 1st of every month. So we've been paying the money somewhere. They are not paying their bill to Eskom, and of course Eskom is in its full right to want their money or to ask for their money. But there's another crooked system here. Now, so Eskom is going to cut the electricity, and we haven't defaulted. So where do we go? And the problem is Eskom is the sole supplier of the electricity. I don't have other options. And that's where the system is not what it should be. Eskom has won a court case. They can cut electricity in order to assert downward pressure. But now we're stuck and the animals are going to die.
Have you spoken to Eskom?
We've spoken to Eskom. We again yesterday, after receiving the notice, engaged with them through 2 legal teams just to ask, and they have just come back to us in a document where they said they will proceed with the electricity cut to Lekwa.
Well, I don't think Chris Skutte is being over dramatic there. It's a company, a business that depends on electricity crucially, and he set out the consequences if there is a cut, certainly an extended cut.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, no, Matshela, I want you to do that. And just in line of what you said a little bit earlier about if there's a deal with the provinces coming, can't you hold off on this particular cut when such a big business is affected?
You know, we've put the country through a phase of a very painful load shedding. We don't want to do that again. We know what it means. We are entitled in law to switch off electricity 24/7.
Which he admits you have the right to do, the Chief
We've
Executive.
decided that we will not do that. So we're not going to be switching off electricity for 24 hours. We've decided that we will switch on weekdays in the morning between 6 to 8:30 in the morning, and then again from 5 o'clock to 7:30 in the evening, and over the weekend from 8:30 to 11 and 3 o'clock to 5:30. And this is for us an acknowledgement that first we care, that we're compromising, we're bending backward because of cases like this. So we say, and we do this upfront so that people can organize themselves, and that includes emergency services as well. We could have said we are entitled and we're switching off, but we're not saying that. We're saying for 5 hours in a day, we will interrupt your supply.
Okay, so it's comparable to load shedding when it happened. I know it doesn't happen now. I know you've got away from load shedding, but when there was load shedding, companies had to plan. It was usually scheduled. So Chris Skutte, the CEO of Astral, did explain what his company did when there was load shedding.
At least load shedding was planned. We could cut back and plan for that. We could move birds between different cities, different towns. But in general, it cost us an arm and a leg. This time around, if Lekwa can't pay this month, what will they do 3 months from now? They will have a further cut of electricity. So it's 4 hours a day now. It equates to 20% of our production uptime. So we're going to lose 20% production time. If they fail to pay in the future, they will be cut to 50% and eventually being cut off completely. So it is not just a concern for today and try and resolve the issue today. It is a permanent problem, and that's why we believe there should be intervention.
So even under load shedding circumstances, you have production seriously affected. And of course, when you have to, it's like a mine. When you stop production in a company like that, it's very hard to just stop it and then start it again. Can't just switch off and switch on.
Yeah, but I need to say, it's not a permanent solution, a problem. We will find a solution with the municipalities, and we will find it not in months, we will find it in days. Yeah. I am confident. We're having very productive discussions with provincial governments.
Sure.
Ashraf?
You know, but David, my issue with what Chris Skutte said was, you know, it's going to cost him a lot of money. But he went through load shedding, and as an investor into his business, my question is, so where are your strategies for dealing with these things? And so I'm now more concerned about buying Astral because clearly management don't have the appropriate strategies. I would have assumed, as with a lot of the property companies, there would be independent power generation and alternative power generation strategies. So,
and they knew that there was this debt that the municipality owed.
It's not so much the debt the municipality owes, but let's throw a scenario out there. South African GDP growth over the next 3 years is 5%, and so it's fantastic. That's going to put pressure on Eskom again in terms of power generation, and we all know it. We know that there won't be sufficient generation for 5% GDP growth over the next 3 years. So if you are looking at alternative strategies and to bring your costs down, surely you're looking at different types of power generation. You know, solar in South Africa is very inexpensive these days. So that's my concern as
we'll
an
get
investor.
on to those. Viv, one last point before we take a quick break.
Yeah, just getting onto one Ashraf was saying here, I do think that you look internationally at places like California, you actually are seeing, you know, the takeoff from the grid dropping because of solar and other options coming through. And there has to be some kind of consent in South Africa, because to a certain extent the rich subsidizes the poor. And if you do see a situation in which there is this total lack of electricity, you may find a situation in which certain groups or companies which take themselves off the grid and then basically become self-supplying.
All right, I think what we'll do is get on to alternative sources, and we're not just talking about Astral in this discussion. We talk about nuclear, renewables, wind and solar, and where Eskom sits with these issues. But one more question for you, Matshela, before we go to the break. Just to clarify on this, you said it could be a solution in a matter of days, in which case I do have to ask, I suppose, on Astral's behalf, can't you hang on with the cut until a few days have passed and maybe you've got a solution?
You see, we thought about that, but like I said, based on the history, it's no longer about having a deal; it's about making a deal happen, and for us, that's the problem.
Yeah. Right. Let's pause our discussion there. Just time to take a short break in the market report, and we'll be returning shortly. We are talking with Eskom's Acting CEO Matshela Koko. Don't go away. On Market Report, we have Viv Govender, he's Senior Analyst at Lehumo Capital, and Ashraf Mohamed, CIO at BUSHA Investment Group. And of course we have the Eskom Acting Chief Executive, Matshela Koko. And we've talked about the Astral issue and cutting off a municipality. Before we move on to the nuclear and the renewables issues, there's a lot of confusion, I think, about that. The comment has been made that Soweto, as a massive area near Johannesburg, has its own debt with Eskom, and that's different to the municipal debt. Can you explain the difference?
Yes, the difference between Soweto and the municipalities we're talking about is that the municipalities we're talking about, we are a bulk supplier to them. And we have a contract with them, they have to pay us. In Soweto, we've got a lot of individual rate payers that have got a contract with Eskom that we transact with them individually. So we don't supply a so-called Soweto municipality. We supply Soweto households. They owe us a lot of money.
The same as the municipalities, 12 billion.
The same as municipalities. We are very aggressive with them to convert postpaid meters to prepaid meters, and we have got an arrangement with them that once you are converted from postpaid to prepaid, we write off your debt. It's a payback. It pays it for us because the debt is just running away. So if we can just convert you into prepaid, and then I can recover my costs. That's a better situation.
But you're not prepared to cut them off, to cut off the electricity.
We're doing that. We're doing that.
Let's move on to, you mentioned California and alternative power generation, taking supply and moving off the grid. On the solar side of things, I think the view seemed to emerge because you've got surplus capacity. It looked like an about turn. National policy, it's been a bit of a success story in South Africa, renewable energy. A lot of companies have started up. There's been a lot of good work done, and yet it appeared that Eskom was saying, no, we don't want it.
This is quite important, and I'm glad we're discussing it today. We have surplus capacity. We have come a long way. There's no doubt that we had a very successful renewable independent power producers program. What we are saying is that implement the renewable program at the pace and cost that we can afford it. And we are saying as Eskom that this pace, both Eskom and the country cannot afford it. Especially within this time frame where we've got a surplus. Post 2021, 2022, where we run out of capacity, we must as a country deploy as much renewables as you can because they are cheap, to the extent that you can have a stable grid. And where you are limited and you've deployed as much as possible and you don't have a stable grid, then match it up with flexible generation such as gas and a combination of a base load. And that base load can never be coal because you have to meet, you are committed to meet your carbon budget. It can only be nuclear, but both at the cost and pace you can afford.
But the question is not so much the independent power producers, it's basically maybe decentralized power should be the better way to say it. There is a move internationally, we're talking about things like, for instance, Tesla, Solar City, those kind of things happening out there. Is Eskom like committed to being a centralized power producer and have that model like go in the country, or are you taking any kind of measures to actually have power provided in a decentralized manner in which basically you could add, like the solar power heaters we have right now, the solar heating facilities, having some kind of subsidy come through to smaller households or more distant households in which they get a contract from Eskom, get a power panels, and they get the battery storage, etc., and have that be the way they get power, as opposed to having a line from a power station hundreds of kilometers away to their house.
The distributed generation, particularly to rural homes, it's for me the way to go. But even in urban areas where me and you can afford, I don't think Eskom can stop it. What the hassle we must pass is net metering. If you've got net metering, you can roll it out. So that you can't stop. It's like that power of an idea whose time has come. So we must get to a stage where, from NERSA point of view, net metering is licensed. It can be done, and Eskom will support that fully.
And what would they take in terms of making the grid smarter and so on?
Yeah.
Okay.
That you can't stop it, and anybody who thinks he can stop it is fooling himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if you take that into consideration, then at some point your expansion program stops, and any capacity you add is exceptionally marginal going forward.
Yes.
And has that decision already been made as to where you see the limited capacity or the upper limit?
No, our energy outlook plan says we are sufficient until 2021-2022. Beyond 2021-2022, you need to add additional capacity. And that capacity cannot be renewables alone. Everywhere in the world, including in California, renewables have only succeeded when they are backed up by flexible generation and or baseload capacity. So the debate is not either or, is that you have to roll out renewables as much as you can. By the way, Eskom has come forward and said we will sign renewables even in times of surplus, but at a going rate, and the current going rate is 62 cents. So if everybody says they're cheap, I agree, bring them, but the going rate is 62 cents. But beyond that, match renewables with a flexible generation and a baseload solution at a pace and cost that we can afford.
Fascinating discussion, and clearly it seems to the layman the mix is what would work best. You need that range of sources. We don't have much more time, but we do need to talk nuclear.
Absolutely.
On the one hand, it's a technical issue, it's a cost issue, and in South Africa it's also become a political issue.
I think it's messed up. I think the politics have messed up, and I think we owe the public and the ratepayer an environment where we can be honest, transparent, and be trusted. I think we've got a trust issue. The public is not trusting us on nuclear for whatever legacy issues. I think there's no technical problems here. There's a very strong perception that we've got a deal that is signed with the Russians.
Correct.
And we are backfitting the process. And the onus is on us to be truthful to the public.
So that you're saying that is not true?
It's not true. But the good thing is that we have a High Court case in Cape Town set up for February that will deal with that case. And I do hope after that case we will bury the concept of Russians having a deal, because there's no deal.
What about the cost side? It said, I mean, in terms of the environment, if you do it properly, there's no damage to the environment.
Absolutely.
It's clean, it's
Absolutely.
much cleaner than coal.
Absolutely.
But the cost, can we afford it?
I think we can. I think you can structure it in a manner that you can afford it. You're building an asset that will last you 8 years. And this 8-year asset, you will build it in 25 years. You will pay it back, you will pay it off in 25 years. If you build one reactor at a time. One reactor every 3 years, or every 2 to 3 years, you will be able to structure this asset that by the time you build the second reactor, the first reactor is already generating cash flows. So, you're not going to go out and fund the whole 9.6 gig all at once, which I think is a mistake that everybody do. But if you set yourself on the path that says build every 2 to 3 years 1,200 megawatts, you will be able to structure it and get it done.
Well, it's been a fascinating discussion. We would like to carry it on, but we can't because of time reasons. So that's all for an exceptional market report this evening. We didn't talk about the markets, but we talked about the supply of electricity on which the economy and, of course, markets depend. Thanks to my guest, Viv Govender, Senior Analyst at Lehumo Capital, Ashraf Mohamed, CIO at BUSHA Investment Group, and our special guest in the show this evening, Eskom's Acting Chief Executive, Matshela Koko. After the break, we do Business Tonight Africa. From us, have a good evening.